Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we also have.
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
Now we touched on this earlier, or weeks ago, but this is still starting to snowball. That Ed Brubaker is kind of not making any money off of his quote unquote creation, Winter Soldier, and saying, how little he's getting paid, that him and Steve Epstein created the Winter Soldier, and he's not making any money off of it. And he did a cameo in the Winter Soldier movie, and that he's making more money off of that than the actual using his character. Now, he also points out that they didn't necessarily use his story, but the framework of Bucky Barnes being used as a sleeper agent is basically his story, where I think it was the Russians, and I'm not sure if it was Hydra in the comic books, but I think it's slightly different. They didn't use everything there. But the sleeper agent part is the part that he's kind of struggling with, right? So before I go on to any more of this stuff, Cal, what are your thoughts on this? And let's not see the Sephora. See that
Yeah,
ad. Keep going.
yeah, we touched on this before when we spoke about the situation with Ed Brubaker. So, and I had remembered in the back of my mind some other characters the new characters that he actually created. So, well, I just wonder if we're going to hear the same thing if they option a character like the Wolf Spider, which is was the male version of the Black Spider, rather the Black Widow special ops program. If that sees the light of day, that's a character that he created flat out.
Yeah.
Or Lady Bullseye from Daredevil, if that character also comes up, if the situation is different and he's compensated differently, if we're going to hear anything from him regarding that, it's I mean, the fact that he got compensated more for his appearance in the film, he said he made an appearance in the film and said a line that got cut from the film, but he still got more money for that than he says for everything else. Okay, but you know, I don't know. I don't want to say disingenuous, but this
Say
is
it.
work. This is work for hire. This is work for hire. You created these stories, and now you're like, well, I want a piece of it too. But that's not the way it works, and it never has.
Well, that's the thing. And let's not look at work for hire as a criminal, a criminal sort of thing. We have to look at it in honesty of what it is. Yes, you know, and okay, the idea is like this. At some point in the 80s, outside of getting royalties, you still didn't own anything. And DC decided to do a thing where they give you money for your redesigns. For a while, Marv Wolfman and George Perez were getting money for Nightwing, even though that was a derivative character. And I think Marv Wolfman was getting a creator percentage for his update on what's that thing on Lex Luthor, and that's rumored on that part. Some people already said that, so I guess we can say both are rumored. But the idea is that that stopped. That was something nice, and DC in general, I think with Paul Levitt's help, have tried to keep the creators getting money. I think they figured a way for Kirby to get money, and that's all DC. Now Marvel worked different. Like Marvel worked in a way where they created a something called a 4% creator percentage, which I think who's it? At that point, John Byrne, Chris Claremont, Walter Simonson, Frank Miller, any of the classic creators of that time, working on stuff that was doing work for hire. They did a lot of stuff before the royalties and that sort of percentage. So when you see the New Mutants, Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod making money off of 4% off of that sort of thing. John Byrne off of the Alpha Flight. I'm not sure anything later for Miller in that case, but you can see how it goes. But then they had reprint fees, so they were giving you money for reprints and that sort of thing. If your thing showed up in a cartoon like the X-Men stuff, you might get a nod from Marvel. You get your reprint fee for the trade paperbacks, but you didn't really hear Byrne or Claremont saying, they would say something about the story, saying, "Hey, it's tough for TV or movies to do our story," which it took us, it took us like 2 years to build this thing up. If you count what Chris did beforehand, like 3 years, so it's like that sort of thing where they would say, they wouldn't say anything saying, "How could they do this to me?" And at some point with the creative percentage, I think for most Marvels outside of Rob Liefeld, most people at Marvel, when Marvel went bankrupt, they sort of understood that, hey, there's no money and they're going to be funny with the accounting. Didn't have time. It feels like Rob Liefeld kind of kept sending his lawyers possibly, and they kept sending him percentage because he kept working for them, and he kept saying that he's been participating since the creation of Deadpool, right? And he saw that creative percentage as something he could utilize. That would be a decent amount of money if he was successful on the X book, and he maximized it with all his creations. Now, when Disney came along, Disney gave a a ton of money, all back pay to people for reprint fees, for creative percentages, and that stuff. But they didn't differentiate between creation and story. And we can complain to them, and hopefully they can, say the story, they should get paid for the story itself, not the creation. But they figure with this work for hire thing, they did something which people haven't done before, and it's Disney. Disney has been notably, terribly tough on creation and saying Disney stuff is Disney stuff. And the fact that they were giving creators anything, back pay for stuff that and giving you a monetized thing of your creations. And it could be like, I think Byrne said when he first got it was a big check for the back pay. And then he'd get a form letter with all the creations that he had. And some would be 5 cents, 10 cents, and it all would amount to some amount at the bottom of the page. Where before, all Byrne was getting as a creative percentage was 5 cents. Whereas Disney, it'd be everything allotted to come up like at least a better number than that sort of thing. But all that said, all that I said, aside from them not paying for story, is thrown out because, as we said before, the Winter Soldier is a derivative character. It's not a wholesale new character. They pay for the characters. And since this is Bucky Barnes, created by Simon and Kirby, then anyone could add a feather in a cap, and then you have to pay them more money. And that's why you should, it went to the period where people didn't want to give away their creations because they could go to Image and possibly get a movie deal. But then when Marvel finally found a footing in the movies, they're like, well, wait a second, now we lose out. I said, yeah, people lose out. Byrne doesn't get money or even credit for the White Vision. His name is only in WandaVision for Rhodey. And that was created before the creative percentage. So, it's one of those things where ultimately, I think we would all want people to make money off of their things, and they're millionaires and this, that, and the other. But once you start asking for money, then who gets paid for Wolverine? Do we get paid? We just pay Roy Thomas, Ling Wen, and John Romita,
Just Roy Thomas.
That's what you gotta have. You gotta get the design. You gotta have what's the name who fleshed it out. So you got those three. Trippy doesn't get anything. What's the name? Who's that guy? Cochran doesn't get anything for giving the face what his face looked like. Claremont for the 17 years, and saying the claws come out the hand. Byrne don't get nothing for saying the whole skeleton is there. Or even who's that guy? Jim Shooter for saying no, it's not a skeleton. It's laced. It's covered. It was covered over. Or even Barry Windsor Smith for saying no, there was a chemical process where they chemically put it into his bones. All those people, how much money goes back to Disney? It goes into madness, and we have to at least be honest. Even though we like this guy, we say we like Ed Brubaker, but at the same time, we can't do it. I would love for everyone to make money, but it gets mad. It goes maddening. It's like if Joe Simon was here, he'd be like, says you, like we created this character. Like I could dress him up and put him in. I could put him in a dress and then say it's a different character. Marvel's not going to pay me twice, and that so it can't be the same thing for these creators that come in and say, what would be a big bang? What if Bucky came back? Oh damn! Look at that. They made a movie out of it. I make nothing out of this. Yeah, but you
Well,
probably were collecting reprint fees and money off of that. You just look, I want to get the big money, the Disney checks.
yeah,
Sorry, I went on for a long time.
no. Bottom line is Roy Thomas gets the money.
Because Roy Thomas said at some point in the movie, I think it was the last act of the movie, he said, hey, someone out there, they remembered me. Like someone out there remembered that I had some part in the creation of it, at least saying we should Len, we should do a Wolverine character. And you do great accents, so you should come up with it, work it out. So it's like, but he was even forgotten for a while. So
I remember reading on the initial creation of Wolverine, and Roy Thomas was like, "Look, we got a large number of Canadian readers, so why don't we make a character, a Canadian character, this type of thing?" And that's pretty much that's the gestation of Wolverine. But that's what gets the ball rolling. And intellectual properties, that's pretty much where you are. It's the idea. Where did the idea come from? If you can target it to right there, that's pretty much it. Because nobody else was thinking about it until that happened. Then you add all the layers onto it as it will, but that's like creating that rubber band ball. It starts with that first one. Otherwise, nobody was thinking about doing it. That's pretty much it. The yeah, I don't know. All that's the only person I've seen who seemed to understand this were some of these guys who did work in the 70s. And they understood, these were guys in the 70s who actually pushed to make certain that they could get these residuals in terms of what they were doing in terms of the character creation. But then these other guys came in, I think, like around this is probably the more modern era, around the 90s. And the money was they were making so much money. I don't think they cared about it or paid too much attention, with the exception of one guy who I love to give the gears, Rob Liefeld. When he realized, oh my God, I can get what? This guy was creating a new character every other page.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let me create a whole bunch of characters. They get picked up, I get paid. And then of course you have the whole thing with Image. I'm going to keep my ideas for myself, and then a movie may be option. I'm gonna at least get paid for that, and so on and so forth. But not everybody's Jeff Lemire, where you can just keep cranking that stuff out. A lot of guys have 2 or 3 good ideas, and maybe that's it at the end of the day. But then, of course, like you just said, the Marvel stuff comes down. Everybody wants their cut. And I don't know. With Brubaker, I was just like, why don't you just be patient? They're probably going to option some of that, a couple of other characters that you actually created that they're probably going to end up optioning. So when they do option these characters, and you are going to have to get the better, are you going to come out now and say, well, I don't like this deal, but I like this deal. I like this one. But that's in line with what it is that's supposed to happen. The whole lot, well, it's so hard for me to sit and watch the movie, and I couldn't get in. I wanted to go to the party, and I couldn't get in. The assistants wouldn't let me in. I had to call Kevin Smith to get in. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. Did you get to go to the party? Well, yes, but I had trouble getting in. Oh, really? So you got to go to the party? Okay, yeah, okay, then whatever, man. They're trying to make this into some real maudlin situation. I can understand you didn't get paid. I mean, this is not like a Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster thing where these guys were like, hey, we're struggling here. Okay, we're struggling here. We got nothing. Okay, we can't even get a pittance out of these dudes, and they're getting ready to make a movie. Totally different thing with, hey, I'm having trouble getting into the party. I had to call some of Kevin Smith to get the party. These guys were trying, like, can I just get some money so I can pay I can pay bills and actually have a decent life? So totally different thing. But the situations are different now, and the media is different. So you can come over and really make it seem like, hey, this is the worst deal ever, even though I signed it with my glasses on.
Well, that's the thing. It's it's the Dave Chappelle, $50 million deal, and somehow you don't have any sort of percentage of your show. And then when they selling it off, like the thing is, you think Seinfeld and all the actors from Seinfeld don't have to work because they signed the best deal when they first got there? No, they renegotiated every time that They do it, every time it gets sold again, because it always gets sold again to someone else and makes the millions, that they get paid. But it's like this turnaround and being like, I made a bad deal, turning it into a bad deal when it wasn't at the time. At the time, this was the thing where they were trying to get some sort of connection. This is building your bones, right? This is the same, not to say that he wasn't already established, but making him into a big name. So it's disrespectful to put, where he can do his creator own stuff and he has a group of fans that go out and buy his stuff. Like that's why you don't see necessarily, you know, you don't see Miller or Byrne looking at their stuff and being like, they can complain about the story and how they did it and that sort of thing. They're just like, hey, we were kids and all we wanted to do was get into comic books. And, they fought for Kirby, but at the same time, for Kirby to get the portion of stuff that even, in some extent he knew what he was getting into, but the thing he was fighting for more for is, hey, just give back that old artwork that that he deserves. This thing where they like, hey, this is what made me, this made me into my next career. And then after that, I was able to make better deals, own a little bit of it. And then when I decided I didn't want to I wanted to do creator own stuff on their own before Image, they did it. Miller before Byrne, but Byrne before Image. So it's like it's out there, and that's one of the things that Miller talks about. It's like the fight for creative rights has already been won. So if you have a character that you don't want to do, that's why he utilized Bucky. So he can say, I can use this for maximum effect, and I don't have to worry about losing a character that I own. And say, oh, they're making that much money. Hey, I changed my mind. Um, you guys swindled me. I didn't know that this was going to become a movie and this, that, and the other, and that sort of thing. So,
No, no one ever does for some reason, even though the history shows that's the potential. That's the potential of these things to happen. Nobody ever thinks that, it goes back to Superman. Nobody ever thinks that that's going to take off. And then you look at the whole thing with Marvel. Oh, we never thought these books were going to take off. Oh, we didn't know it was going to be a popular cartoon. Oh, we didn't know about these TV series. Oh, we didn't know about this. Oh, we had no idea that Spider-Man was going to be such a hit. Oh my goodness, we had no idea that this. It's like, how much? If you just follow what happens in the comics, that's pretty much the natural progression outside of them. It just happens a lot faster. And I mean, if you look at what's it? You go 10 years. You go about 10 years so you go from 1961 to 1971, and you look at just the natural progression of what happens from Fantastic Four to 71 when you're getting a little bit more of the horror feel back. But you had a fully vibrant Marvel universe at that point. The interaction, characters knew each other, things that are coming in. And then from that, you could do, you were able to do other stuff. That's when you can do things like cartoons or say, hey, why don't we do like a test pilot for a Doctor Strange show? But the thing was, none of those things worked at that time. Everybody's like, and then of course, it wasn't that they ever stopped. That's the thing that also gets me as well. You see Stan Lee over there, and they're like, oh, well, Stan was trying to do the stuff and it didn't work, but he never stopped. It wasn't that, okay, we're trying to get this film made, it didn't work, that was it. Okay, we're never going to try to make a film. No, it was a continuous process until it finally worked. And even then, after it works, everybody's like, oh, flash in the pan, this, that, and the other. But it's not until now that everybody, oh my God, and then all the money that comes behind it. But you can see the natural progression. This is something that they were continuously, okay, even when Marvel was struggling with bankruptcy, they were still continuously, they made freaking movies, they were making movies at that time. They continuously were pushing towards this as a final goal, okay, or as one of the goals. And, everybody operated like they never had any clue that this was even possible, even though it was based on the strength of that source material from the comic. If it wasn't possible, none of these characters would be around right now, which I've always said is the biggest malpractice on DC's part when it comes to Superman. These guys, like, you guys can't make a movie. You can't make a movie at the end of the day. This guy's been around all this time. You slap an S on it, you make some money. And it's like, well, we don't know how to make, we just don't know how to make a movie. But you know, you look at the history of it, this is what you should be preparing for as a creator. Okay. The opportunity that for whatever reason this thing catches fire, either immediately or 5 years later or 10 years later. But if you see that it resonates with readership, there's a good chance it's going to resonate outside of the medium that you're using. And they don't seem to get that at the end of the day until they don't seem to see any sign except for the dollar sign. Once that's there, then it becomes what huh? Where's my check?
Well, one of the things, and that's why I bring up the people of the past. If you look at the DVDs extras on those early movies like Spider-Man and X-Men and Daredevil, like those movies would have the comic creators that added the other characters after Stan Lee or Jack or Stan Lee and Bill Everett on Daredevil, or and Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, having people like Romita and this, that, and the other. You have creators that aren't going in there and saying, hey, I went in there and they tricked me into doing this stuff, where they were just like, they enjoyed what they saw in the comics and they couldn't wait to do it. And Miller talking about, hey, like it's adult things. He's not saying, he's party to it and saying this is what it is. It made me I wanted to do Marvel, I wanted to do comics, and I decided to pick a character that might, that isn't as big as Spider-Man, and he made a name for himself. Being able to say that and look at his peers and saying, you had Daredevil, have Miller show up to the Daredevil movie, where we're looking at the movie and we're like, I don't know about that. When he talked about it and he joked about in his I think he did a commentary saying, like how tough he was compared to Ben Affleck, and he joked about it afterwards. Like, no, everybody was gracious to me. Everyone, was friendly, and it was cool showing up and meeting everybody, and that sort of thing. Where you have the Walter Simonson showing up at the Thor set, or having Ling Wen or Chris Claremont in one of those X-Men movies, and that sort of thing, being party to this thing, rather than turning these guys into guys that got cheated and somehow big bad Hollywood did something, where he's like, it's easy to play this game where it's just like, you made your bones, you got success out of it, you're able to still work and put out, graphic novels. And how many other people I think he does what, like, does he do FATALE? And there's other characters like Vulcan, that could possibly show up in these Marvel movies. So, like, you may get made, if you want to complain, just look at your peers, and that is the lead you should follow, because we can say we want to change that thing. But at the same time, you need to go to Marvel and say, all right, I want to create this character named Winter Soldier. It's going to be Bucky Barnes. I'm not doing it unless I own a part of it. And they were like, what? It's Bucky Barnes. Maybe we could talk about it. It was your own. No, I need to be Bucky Barnes. I need to own a portion of it. It's unreasonable. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe say, hey, you know what? I need to own this story, needs to be, a percentage of it needs to come to me. And then they say no, yes or no, and you walk out and you have your conviction and leave. But that's not what happened. It's like, oh, what's going to sell? Everybody's been talking about possibly bringing back Bucky. I mean, Roger Stern and Byrne talked about that, possibly doing that thing, and they said they went against it. They said, nah, and it wouldn't have been done.
DC. They stole that from DC.
But they weren't. That's the thing. They weren't gonna do what we saw here. Like, we weren't gonna see Winter Soldier. They had something, and then they, of course, as writing goes, they're like, you know what, we decided against it. But they wouldn't be coming back saying, how the hell did you use my thing? How could you use that? And I make no money off it. Yes.
Do you remember the storyline that was going on with DC at the same around the same time? I believe DC came out first. Do you remember what character they resurrected at DC?
What was that? What character was that?
They brought back Jason Todd.
No, this was way before. This was
the Winter Soldier.
No, with Captain America. I mean, yeah, they brought it back. Yeah, you're exactly right. I was literally talking about the Stern thing. You're exactly
No,
right. They definitely brought back Jason Todd.
a lot of times I've seen this parallel between storylines that happen with Batman and
Yeah,
Captain America, and almost at the same time, where they bring back Jason Todd, and of course he's all wigged out because of stuff that happens, and then you got the same thing. They bring back Bucky, he's all wigged out, or they got Cap and he gets shot with this bullet, and next thing you know he's traveling through time. And then you go look at Batman. What happened? He gets shot with the Omega beam from
yeah,
Dark. He's traveling through time. I've
yeah.
always said, Marvel's like, we need some ideas. Hey, what's going on with Cap? What's going on with Batman right now? Cap, you're going through time.
Yeah, that's. Almost. I feel like we should have led. That's such a strong point to be like, this is a gimmick, and I've been steering away from it because it gained as much popularity and the tone or the approach that probably people would say it was a solid way to do it. But that's the period of Marvel where they were just like anything kind of goes. And it's from what, I totally forgot it that, that DC had already done that. And it was a buzz even before it was just hinted at. When it was just hinted that he was coming back, there was a buzz around it. And then when they did it, it wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheapened, even though for the fans still went for it. And then of course Marvel does their Winter Soldier, but of course, you know, we're gonna make who's that girl, Black Widow, old as hell by having her train with them all that time and whatnot. It's like, yo, how old?
They gave her the super soldier serum. I'm like, when the hell did that happen?
And that's what you got. I don't know. That's where you get who's that guy? I don't know. That's the thing. It's this thing of creators and fighting for stuff and saying I created this and I deserve this amount of money and I did that and that sort of thing. And it's just like some of these things we have to say, it sounds like we're siding with a bad corporation, but you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. They own the stuff. Disney has been worse than that, where at one point they would not allow you to do parodies of Mickey Mouse. They used to sweep down and do cease and desist. So you
I've got
really,
those books,
hmm?
and I have those books. They sell very well.
But they really fight you from doing that. And with coming into the owning a comic book company, they've been very very lenient on the stuff they would usually stop. They haven't stopped creators from doing commission work with their characters. They've been they settled all the money that was owed to the creators, and they, even if it's a small percentage overall, they were starting to pay. DC, ultimately AT&T would be the deciding factor if DC creators still get the money that they're getting, because I think Paul Levitt being there was kind of guy to be able to be like, hey, here, Jerry Conway, here's this X amount of dollars and that sort of thing. And when the money, I think there was an issue with money, they kind of figured that out a little while after. But I mean, it's being almost like, because I think at some point Marvel called their royalties almost a gift, like that sort of thing. So it's like, and the artwork, though, definitely the artwork was a gift, and saying that you don't own it, that sort of thing. So, we're asking a lot out of a corporation, and I'm not usually with the corporation. I say they got a ton of money, they can pay all this, but with these sort of things, where people have added on so much stuff, where you have Venom, and there's so many people that had, not even a hand in it, but added something to it that's very slight, like even the idea of, just like which is not something that Byrne would go out and fight for, but it was like saying something where how Marvel worked back in the day, where he's like, this thing where where who's that guy? Iron Fist gets his shirt turned off all the time, he tore apart all the time. maybe he should have something that grows back. And then they, Iron Fist gets canceled, and Roger Stern is like, "Hey, can I use that idea? Can I use that idea that we did for the costume for Spider-Man? Yeah, whatever you want to do." And then next thing you know, he doesn't use it. They're like, "We need something for this costume change." Hey, Stern tells them, "You guys, what about this?" And it's like the handoff where these guys aren't asking for money at all. Like they're just like, whatever. It's like Lee said, who's that guy? Chris Claremont and Bernie Claremont are cordial, but at that point they're still like jabbing each other with blunt swords. And he's like, you see the New Mutants, and they have Psycho, who is David Haller. And he's like, oh, don't call him that. Burns said, call him Legion. He said, and so I am Legion, and we are many. And Chris Claremont used it. There's no credit to Burns because they didn't care. They don't care. They were handing things off, storylines. Byrne has used storylines that Stern has told him. He said storylines of mine have wound up on Stern's byline. The storylines of which I think is Tyrone King being Master Khan. That was Roger Stern's idea. So that sort of thing. Whereas they used to hand off stuff without the insanity of saying, I did it, and that guy is a hack. It's like being friends and being cordial and just having fun, wanting to help. Like back in the day when comedians would add on tags to other people's stuff, where now they kind of just trying to ruin it with this thing of saying, yes, I want the creators to get money, but I don't want it to be like we have someone who just added a feather to someone's cap, or saying, hey, what if the movie people decided that, no, what if the Ultimates people decided that, oh, what's the name, added an actual helmet that we should give Hitch and Miller $1 million more than Kirby and Simon. No, we can't do it. Even though they use that, these were created by Simon and Kirby. You can't take away someone else because you like the newer version. It's still the same character. You can't, you put a new costume in, and then that's not enough. That's all I got to say about it. Getting me all riled up again. Any last words?
That camaraderie was because it was a creative process and everybody felt like they were a part of that creative process and they were helping towards that creative process. And I think a creative partnership is a lot easier to maintain than a business partnership once you put money in, because a lot of stuff changes after that. When it became, oh yeah, it was cool. Wait a minute, how much money? No, that was all me. That was all mine from start to finish.
Yeah.
What happened? He never wrote anything. Okay, he never wrote a lick of this whole stuff. I created the whole thing. All right. I went to his house. I whispered in his ear while he was sleeping. Do a book called Fantastic Four. Now, forget about what the editor said. Forget about that. And the other Justice League book over there had nothing to do with it. It was all me all the time from start to finish. Money just really, it's such a weight at the end of the day when the creative thing is really the most important thing when it comes down to it, because that's where you get all the good ideas and everything that comes from it. The only thing I will say is that you have to be cognizant of the potential of what you're working on, so that when money does come out, it's not this afterthought, like, what? I can actually make money off it? Like, yes, you can. People have been making money off entertainment for centuries, if not longer, but people have also been used in the same situation, and coming into it, just having your eyes open as to, okay, just to make certain that you cover yourself, because unless you're doing it on your own and you're going out and you're self-publishing and you're really hustling, which is never going to be as big. I mean, I can self-publish a book and I can hustle and so on and so forth, and I'm still never going to be able to equate what something like Huffman Mifflin is able to do. These guys have, decades of experience, much more money, much more contacts, all of that type of thing at the end of the day. But if I'm working for them, if I'm writing for them, yeah, you get yourself the best possible deal. You understand what it means to create with the entity that you're working with, so you don't have to have a sob story later on as to, oh, I couldn't get into the party and it's so hard watching all of this. Well, dude, You're a professional, and part of being a professional means looking out for your interests. That has to be said.
And understand that you're a nobody. You think when they drag out Claremont, the couple of things on the cons, drag Burn to, they joke about being a nobody in these things. Where the people like, oh, this is the guy. Which one of them is the guy that created, did the Dark Phoenix story? Like, which one of out of the whole crowd? You don't know you. You're not a famous person, and that's the thing that you get to walk out and no one hammer you. Be like, oh, I couldn't get in. Yeah, because there's a gatekeeper. That don't mean that you got in. Shut up. And we know the creative process, the creator-owned process it falls under the same struggles, because I think once The Walking Dead hit, and who's that guy? And
Kirkman?
Yeah, Kirkman, he was like, I am dedicating my life to only doing creator-owned stuff, and everyone should make that step to doing creator-owned, and all the Tom McFarlane all go behind him, and they're like, yes, and we got
this. And then he got the check, and he was like, huh? How much money?
Well, that's the thing. He got the check, he got that, and then at the same time, then who comes along? The artist, Tony Moore, saying, hey, we created that together. All right, we gotta go to court and settle this out. It's like Todd McFarlane. It's this creator-owned thing is a tough thing, because it's like, because people have been nice to Image. I know I don't turn it into an Image thing, being like they're going creator-owned, but then they forgot that, oh, these will only work for hire deals. No, he didn't say it would work for hire deals. He said, no, that's why I gave you all that ton of money up front, so you wouldn't worry about the residuals on this stuff, or the reprints and all that stuff. Like, no, where's that deal? And the fans have almost defended them in saying, when they brought on people, when Jim Lee asked Byrne to join, that was for work for hire. It's like they were going against work for hire like madmen, but at the same time, even Rob Liefeld, when he talks about Youngblood, it's like, oh, I don't, at this point now, I don't want to utilize that because I don't fully own them, and this, that, and the other. You made the deal to sell them and share the property to get things done. That's business. I don't care how you don't like the person, or that person is evil and this, that, and the other. Now, you make a deal with the devil, or you take the king's shilling, you do the king's bidding. You're like, you took that money, and then now you're going to complain that how he wants to use it. Then it was a poor judgment call. But then it's like, that's the price of doing business. Who knew there was going to be that thing? But Disney is not. That's not this. This is there, and he's asking for, hey, let's have another allowance, and to come
Disney
to the
table. I was gonna say Disney knows. Disney has a very good understanding of what they can manipulate, and probably what's not going to work. And then there's a ton of stuff that Disney has acquired to keep it on ice, so they don't have to compete with it.
Yeah,
like all that stuff that Marvel acquired. With cross-gen and everything, there's tons of characters in there. They can say, hey, why don't we try this stuff over here? You're like, are you kidding? Why do we're not using this? we're still making, like, we're not even on the exhaust yet with this. We still got a whole bunch of huck in the truck when it comes to that. So those guys, Disney understood that years ago when they're doing stuff like Snow White and Cinderella, saying, look, everybody knows this stuff. How can we lose? How do we lose with this thing? We're just going to create this. We'll make it cool. The kids are going to love it. The parents remember it. We put some music in there. It's good. Everybody feels good about it. And that's it. They understand they have a very good understanding how that works and the stuff that they acquire at the end of the day, which makes you really, again, it's like, how is it that I don't know. As somebody who's looking forward to being in that situation in the future, I just don't know how these guys get into it. And then they're like, what? What do you mean? It's like, I understand the joy of creating something, of coming up with a story, of seeing it realized, and there's some really good stuff with that. But, the last thing you want to do is be in some situation where you did it, and then somebody else is coming like, well, I changed the hair color from black to blonde, so that makes me a co-creator. That's why you have contracts, because once you throw money in there, people get really, really, you can get really, really weird. But it's also to protect yourself in terms of, well, if this does go somewhere, I want to make certain that I'm not sitting here like, well, I had such a great time with the creation of it and I can't get paid. Or what was this? What was the deal that Alan Moore made where he was like, yeah, if it ever stops being published, if it ever stops being published, I own the characters. And at no point did it seem to filter in, well, what if this really hits? It's never going to stop being published.
Yeah. Well, that's ultimately a part of that deal, to be like, say, hey, we're not sure this is going to be a success. We're not sure, because they weren't sure on, that's what Chaykin said, they weren't sure on his Shadow or the Dark Knight, and both of those sold. And obviously we know the way, what's that thing, way Watchmen turned into this thing. So you can't, you can complain and cry about it, and I'm not saying he's crying, but it's just like, it's just having to put it in that terms to say that when you make that sort of thing, and Alan Moore has kind of been that way, where he's been like, hey, they did this to me. But at the same time, there's other factors, there's other things going on outside of when it was turned to him, like he was doing reprinting, what's that thing? Reprinting Miracle Man or Marvel Man. He's reprinting that, and the artist is like, hey, I'm not the original artist, Gary Leach, but Alan Davis is like, Alan Moore's kind of blocked my Catherine Britons that we did together, and that kind of hurt me getting to see my stuff being seen in the American comic book, at least the stuff that everyone wants to read. So I'm going to block Miracle Man when they come to my reprints. And then, Alan Moore was party to them just printing it. But then, of course, he just goes to say, hey, I asked about Alan Davis, would you be watching, will they be taking care of him? And they said, yes. I didn't know that they didn't. And then Alan Davis joked and said, oh, he cared so much, he didn't think to pick up the phone. I get it. It was just like that sort of thing where he's not actually doing anything or caring, or going to what's that thing called, the public domain. Like, you can still send the heirs of those books the money. Nobody wants it. You want to play, I can do whatever I want in the public domain, because other writers have done it. Like, no, you're the creator own guy. You're the helping the little guy. No, public domain is public domain. I get to play it. Literally, all the writers have been playing in that form all the time. So public domain for everybody. And that's the thing, where to create our own thing. We the pros, not we, but then the pros can't play fair with it. We're asking the corporation, who's literally giving them some money at times, or figuring a way for you to get some money and that sort of thing, that we're asking them to be like, you make sure you give them money for Winter Soldier. And then Joe Simon was still alive, he would have had a field day with that, because he don't play around with legal stuff. They're like, you're gonna give him money for my character? That sort of thing. So
and Joe Simon doesn't play.
yeah, Lord, that's the best part, because I was really upset when Rob Liefeld was doing his Agent America, and I was like, I had the volume of the Fighting American.
How many does Liefeld have?
Huh?
How many Captain America characters does Liefeld have?
Well, I think
Fighting American.
Agent America only came out as the Ash Can. What's the name? Because he brought it to a comic convention, and when Joe Simon saw that, he did the cease and desist, which everyone should have, because that idea that, hey, Marvel and DC were allowing, sometimes things were getting through without being said. There was some where they agreed to it, but then he was like, hey, that doesn't mean everybody just create characters that are copies of other characters. But yeah, he had Agent America that became the Fighting American, but that's through talking with with Joe Simon after he, you know, did the cease and desist and went to sue him and said, well, if you republish the Fighting American, um, then then you can I'll take away the suit and you pay me X amount of dollars and you publish, right? Which he did. But that's what I think when Captain America copyright came up again, and what's that thing? Joe Simon was in line to take Captain America, the same way Superman family, the Seagulls were going after Superman, and Burns said, "So what happens? What happens? Joe Simon gets Captain America, and he gives it to Rob Liefeld." I was like, "No, don't even joke like that." But yeah, so he definitely, you know, wouldn't, you know, we hear that Spider-Man was going to be similar to the Fly, and Stan Lee was like, "No way, I'm getting in line, getting in the crosshairs of Joe Simon. I ain't letting that happen." Ditko, you're on this book. So, but I guess we should end this here. Ed Brubaker, we feel for you, but there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. Just like they say in the mafia, you know, what's saying? There's nothing we can do for them. Nothing we can do in Goodfellas. Nothing we can do right now.
Stop moaning and just wait till they option a character you actually created, which is going to happen.
Yeah, you get your, well, I mean, the only one I can think of is, well, you got one you keep saying, was it Lady Bullseye? And then you see the chintzy sort of stuff. Vulcan, the brother of Cyclops and Havoc, all these nutty characters.
He's probably going to get money for Wolf Spider, the male version of the Black Widow.
Stop! They're all bad. The thing of only merit is someone.
They don't care. They don't care. These guys are like, this is money now. They don't care. They want that character to be optioned so they can get paid.
I took a character that was already an existing character, a bit that many a writer said, no, I've thought about it, I'm not going to do it. And you saw DC, as you said, as Cal said, so see DC do it with the junior character who was killed and brought back, and then you did that. That is not the same thing as creating even the Wolverine or the FF Spider-Man, none of that. It's derivative, and that's it. Spin rack out.
Out.